Stay out here. You're leaving?
Executive Director of MWC and also that we became honored and privileged of being editor of My Cancer Chronicle, like Stahl, the book that we're here to celebrate. Yeah, it's I've been really looking forward to this. So we have so many people, especially the Stahl family, here to help us celebrate the release of this book, to read through this book, to be together in community, and remember the great poet person that they was. I want to get to the readings and everything like that. I don't want to take up too much time with preliminary comments and things like that. There are some people that we need to thank for making this happen. First of all, we'd like to thank Laureate College for hosting this event and making it possible that this room in this place. So that's very special. Very special. Thank you here participating and making this book possible, contributing to this book. Yeah, so thank you very much for having us and the generous host. We also want to thank the Illinois Arts Council Agency, Scott County Regional Authority, the Poetry Foundation, for making this book materially possible, for what it's work to make this book another MWC Press publications possible. We've been fortunate to have very hard to make this book. What we all had, what we all imagined. Check out this beautiful process. Thank you for being here and thank you for your contribution to the book. And Bowden, thank you for doing an endorsement for being here to read and celebrate the release of this book. Dale Hockey, fellow film book writers. There's losing sight of everybody, seeing all these people, finding anybody for also being here to read a poem, contributing an endorsement. Professor Olson, thank you very much for being here, for reading and contributing, and obviously, it's looking forward to your readings. Most of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for trusting us. This was a very important project to a lot of people, and it's very important to you. It meant a lot to me. It meant a lot to the sun. It meant a lot to a lot of people in this room, beyond this room. So we took this very seriously. This was a very deep honor to publish this work. A very difficult book to write. A very really book to experience, and we really hope that in part of what we wanted to do with this book, besides just present the poems as they were written, present that experience through many people's awesome. I know I've had similar experience in my life, and many people in this room have had similar experiences, like themselves, or people that you know, and love, family members, friends, things like that. It's tough. Right? It's about as difficult an experience as there is. And I think it's an extraordinary work to share that experience in a way that we receive it in these poems. And I hope that your willingness to have this book be out. I hope that the people who are going through that experience, people who are going through that experience, to caregivers, we included a bunch of resources in the back for people who are going through those things, whether they're treatment centers, whether they're mental health resources, or for patients, for family and friends of patients, for caregivers, something like that. So we hope this book from this day forward has an long life and touches a lot of people. I'm just going to read my editor's note. I wrote a couple other things, but I spent so much time writing this that, like, I feel like this is like the thing that I would like to say. So I'm going to read this and I'll start introducing people. It's short. The editor's note. Stahl assembled these poems in the complete manuscript prior to his passing, and so left us as close to the finished prose to be accomplished, especially given the circumstances under which the poems were written. In preparing this book for publication, we attempted to present these poems just as they were written and arranged them. Only minor adjustments of formatting, spacing, and spelling were made where necessary. Our only directive in putting together this book was to remain true to the poems and the manuscript that they created, and we feel we've been successful in that mission. While those familiar with Dick's work will certainly recognize the precision and richness of his description of images and the gentleness of his gaze and his poems, they also mark a departure from much of his other work, particularly in terms of where that gaze is aimed. Here, the attention often directed outwardly toward the surroundings of the natural world, or to historical events and special occasions, is attuned mostly to himself, his physical experiences, and those accompanying him in this journey, particularly his wife. The formal elements of these poems, enjambments, line breaks, juxtapositions, etc., follow the shift in content and work with the other aspects of his poetry, creating a striking balance between the urgency of the moments captured and the serenity that at once brings together those moments and extends beyond them. I'm deeply honored to have worked on this book and played a small part in bringing it to publication, but I cannot say it was an easy task. Each time I read these poems, I cannot help but think of my father, Richard Collins, who, like Dick Stahl, was a longtime teacher and a graduate of arts and knowledge. My father died of pancreatic cancer in January 1992. While the times and the experiences in this book are quite different from those from my life decades ago, the feelings and memories from that time about my father become palpable when I read these poems. Rather than being something negative or fatalistic, however, this prompting of memory has proven to be the strength of these poems, that they can make those of us with similar experiences recall our loved ones and their journey to cancer, to remind us not only of the difficulty and pain, but also of more tender moments, the shared peacefulness and this morning. It is a power of Dick's poems that they can summon for us a shared experience, where we can shoulder the grief and the joy at the same time, together as we meet them on page, poem to poem. Dick was the first teacher I had in a poetry workshop, and I will be forever grateful for his generosity and his example. He would attend any poetry workshop or reading he was able. He was always game to read his work and contribute to the writing that he helped to create and foster for many years. These poems reflect his lifelong dedication to his craft, to learning and experimenting, to his openness to new and unfamiliar ways of making poems. While so many people get more and more set in their ways as time goes on, Dick was a model of curiosity, of writing and living as variously as possible, as Frank O'Hara said. On behalf of the English Writing Center and everyone who helped to make this book possible, we want to thank Dick's wife, Helen, his children, Rita, Randy, and May, for their invaluable assistance and collaboration through the editorial process, and for trusting us to bring this work into the world. Now it is my pleasure and privilege to welcome Dr. Lisa Zachariah, MD from the University of Iowa Home Comprehensive Cancer Center.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's my pleasure to be here. I would say my first disclosure, I have allergy to cough. It's not COVID for me as of a couple of days ago. So just if you see me coughing, don't get allergic. I have allergies. So it's my pleasure to be here. memories go back with me a couple of years ago, almost 2019, when we met at the Comprehensive Cancer Center. And at the time, Mr. Stahl presented with melanoma in the type of the nose that spread. So we were chatting about his treatment plan and about his prognosis. And usually when a patient comes to me, my very first visit, I try to break the ice between and the relationship of patient-physician. Because any body diagnosed with cancer certainly is a life-changing event, and it becomes a source of anxiety and depression for the patients and family and everybody belonging to their friends and everyone. So really, I take it on my side for anybody who comes to my clinic, and this is a practice of my colleagues here at the university, is to break the ice and break this anxiety level with the patient. So we start asking more outside cancer history, like what do you do, what have you done in life, what do you enjoy, and then as we are going along with the conversation, we start formulating a plan and talking about the future. So I remember asking Mr. Stahl about what did he do in life, and both he and I remember trying. You guys most say you write points, right? Points, and you meet in the library and read for students or something like that. This again 2 years ago, maybe it's not accurate, but that's what I remember. So when I heard like he's a pointer, I said, well, who knows? You might write a book about your journey with cancer. I threw that in there. I never expected we would be meeting today after 2 years, just because of me throwing that word out the meeting there. It's meant a lot to me. Few weeks into his treatment, he went first on trial, and a few weeks into his treatment, he comes in with a stack of points. I said, well, he's taking it seriously. It seems like it's not a joke. So every few visits, he would bring me a couple of points of what he wrote, and those were very, I don't know how to say it, but very, they are delivering the truth, so he would bring up some very close observation and in a very nice way as a point. It was astonishing to me, how much observant he was. And I can tell you, I see a lot of patients, and sometimes it's just hard for me to deliver my standard of care to them, just to let them follow my recommendation or my orders, because they are not compliant. And here I have Mr. Stahl, I just say, write a poem, and he wrote a book, So it meant a lot to me. It meant a lot. He was very meticulous about showing up to all his appointments, asking all sorts of questions. I honestly, when I saw the handwriting, I remember the yellow book he used to write on every single visit, and always that opening line. I think I saw you once, maybe once. But Helen, I don't think we missed any visits. So it meant a lot. And after, unfortunately, our journey together did not last long because his disease was aggressive and then passed away. But then Helen stopped by later and delivered a stack of papers, where all the points. Wow, that was like that was a great gift, I would say. I still have it in my office, and then I think about 6 months ago or so, sometime in February, I got this email with all capital letters from Richard. I mean, it almost went to my spam folder maybe or something, but and then Helen was telling me that they're trying to deliver for the book put this book together, and it was really great news, I would say. Why is this important in my mind? I can talk to my patients, or any physician can talk to their patients 5 hours. But what is going to stick in their brain? Minimal minutes, because of the anxiety of the depression. And the language we speak, it's not necessarily, an understandable language. We speak medical terms sometimes, so it can become overwhelming. I will tell you, if a patient listens to another patient experience, they will gain much more, and they will have that trust even. I'm brave to say they will have that trust in listening to their fellow patients more than their physician, because they know they are hearing it from someone who experienced it firsthand, and not someone who studied about it and find the indication. So it means a lot for other patients to read or to hear the experience from another patient. So this book, when I read through it, and the way Mr. Stahl was delivering his day-to-day fight in a very nice, small, understandable book, I think this will leave a lot of impact on other patients, in my opinion. So hopefully, again, the word spreads out, and patients can benefit from this experience and learn about it, learn about the journey how to battle cancer. And I certainly thank you, Helen, and thank you everybody for putting all these efforts together. I'm sure he's proud of all the hard work you guys have done to put this out to the public. So thank you, and thank you for accompanying me all the time, and thank you for all of you for being here, and for my family to be here too. And enjoy the event.
Thank you so much for those comments, and that means a lot to hear coming from a professional. That's certainly what we hope for, and moving forward, if there's anything that we can do for future patients. How it's also a difficult time with people with allergies, considering everything that's going on, right? It's still kind of tough to be seen. But thank you so much. We really appreciate your contributions to the book. And yeah, just like to suggest, like, just do what you normally do, right? I know there are people in here who have written books of poems or books of other things. To write a book of poems about anything under those circumstances is sort of, I've read this book dozens and dozens and dozens and dozens of times. It boggles my mind. I haven't gotten over it yet. It still seems like kind of slightly impossible that this book exists. So that it exists as a flower. Also seems a little difficult. Thank you so much for, I guess, giving us the genesis of what we hope to experience now. Thank you so much. Our next speaker is also what's a Laureate. It's going to be happening today or something. He's also a professor of English and creative writing at MWC College. He's welcome to faculty.
Yeah, this is a beautiful, moving, very emotional event. Dick and Helen have been supporters of mine ever since I was in Quad Cities, I think, which has been 25 years. I think 25 years ago for 1 year, and never left. But as they well know, I lost a husband to leukemia in our mid-30s, and did the hospital vigil, and he was trying to finish his dissertation in the hospital. And I know a lot about what Helen has gone through since Dick passed, but this is extraordinary. And anyone in this room who has moved it, knows that it doesn't take much if you mention the word poem, or you give him a writing prompt, or you invite him to come to, poetry reading. Yep, he was going to take that and he was going to go with it. And I'm grateful, along with everybody else, for the fact that you suggested, gave him permission to do it, gave him a project that mattered to him, and this book out of that experience. So I'm going to read I wrote a long forward because I'm wordy, but I'll just read a couple parts of it. You'll be able to read on your own the sections where I was kind of taking notes on Dick as a writer, Dick as a friend. So, and some of what I came to know about Dick through Helen. So I'm just going to read a couple sections from this forward. This one is called Pens and Ink, and it opens with a line from Helen. The color depended on what he was writing about. Those in various complexities, literary and art communities have our similar and collective memories of Dick's dedicated and intentional presence, his notepads, his fountain pens. But until Helen shared it with me, I did not know that he chose colors of ink inspired by his subject matter, and that he rarely used black or blue to compose, to do a first draft of a poem. Years ago, we discovered a Paradise Picture store in a shopping mall near his daughter's home in Denver. And Helen reports that Dick bought many, many pens there over the years. I think that's all we read from that section. So I want to get on to the poems, but you are welcome to read a few more details about his process. This is the section on the poems. The poems in Dick Stahl's collection, My Cancer Chronicle, are life-affirming from the first to the last page. They clearly document the stages of his journey with melanoma, including the doctors and staff who treated him, the procedures and medications he braved, the multi-weekly trips between Davenport and Iowa City for consults and treatments, and the pain that makes increasing appearances in the later poems. These poems also reveal how Dick's spirit and dedication to poetry, as well as to survival, came together even as he began to know that his cancer was as determined as him. But more beautiful even than his steadiness in the face of death, these poems reveal Dick's love for and devotion to Helen, and the happiness he found with her for over 51 years. When I visited them at their home in early 2020, even though Dick could no longer write by hand, he was animated and pleased to share his new work, which Helen brought out for us to read together. And although I'm a longtime admirer of Dick's poetry, this collection reveals a new register and dimension of his vision and experience, which somehow does not include fear or complaint, even in the very last poems he wrote. I have many favorites among these poems. I was surprised by Cancer Chronicle for its soothing, sensual, underwater imagery, its attitude and tone. I admire another title, Do You Want a Warm Blanket? For its warmth and the speaker's palpable gratitude for how nurses' care makes me feel special. I'm also fond of Driver for its awareness of the many new responsibilities Helen took on as his #1 caregiver. This is just a portion from the poem Driver. It describes their 60-mile drive from Davenport to Iowa City this way. It's kind of a little poem. She's at the wheel right now, threading between speeding semis, oversized loads, monster recreational vehicles, muscle cars, prefab houses on trucks going west, and the road antics of errant drivers grandstanding on highway. I'll have to read the whole poem, it's wonderful. In this poem, Dick also describes the changing weather she drives them through, as well as the wheelchairs in which she steers him through the hospital, often 2 to 3 times a week, for months. Driver concludes with loving gratitude for help. How lucky am I to be getting the best of care? I say cancer doesn't stand a chance against her. In the Quad Cities, anyone who reads or writes poetry has encountered Dick Stahl's behavior and has likely experienced his attention and encouragement. Dick was a generous poet and poetry advocate, gave his time and talents to the art until his death on February 1920. It surprised no one who knew that he faced his diagnosis and procedures with courage, hope, determination, and poetry, writing the poems in this collection throughout the months preceding his death. When he could no longer write or type, he dictated to Helen or to his children. At that point, the color of ink may no longer have concerned him, but the poems kept coming. 7 was his favorite number, so he decided this book would have 70 poems, and it does. Well, I just was so emotional, even when I woke up this morning up here, so much to think of this person, this wonderful man. It also won't surprise Dick's family, friends, and admirers to find humor, gratitude, and clear-sighted honesty in these poems, despite the months and degrees of pain he had finally to navigate. Writers have the unique prospect of leaving written accounts of their lives, and in Dick's case, the vivid awareness of death's approach. He did not squander it. This last collection of poems is a gift from a fully engaged, compassionate, and present man. I miss Dick every time I attend a local writing event, workshop, or reading, but he is fully with us in his pages, reminding us how to live. Although somebody's story, but I'm going to read one of his poems and let others. Oh, I did also promise Dominique that there's an admirer of Dick's poetry who could be here today, but he sent me this little simple, it's a little poem. And Don would say he's not a poet, but this is what he wrote. A sight, a sound, a shape. What his eye captures, his mind distills into context, a sentence, a poem. In Mississippi's thrall, he drinks the river, breathes, lives it, and then he writes. So that's from our characters, care very much about Dick. And the poem Dick's that I want to close with is Channel 109 Nature Healing, because Helen told us the stories about what this channel meant to him. With lights off in the room and music muted after my infusion, I spent 4 hours in bed under a warm blanket with nature. Blue sky, waterfalls in every configuration, deer, elk resting in tall grass, their antlers growing like another species of high prairie grass, mountain goats, and prairie dogs. I dozed off at times with dreams of the upper Mississippi River, where my wife and I climbed the high bluffs for pictures and poems. In print, we called it bluffing. If you haven't seen that, that's another. No bluffing when the nurse entered the room to check up on me and read the monitor, aged Charlie, my constant companion in and out of bed. I returned to snow-covered mountains, yellow aspen woods waving in rolling meadows, gurgling brooks, washing a bed of oval rocks. In all of this calm, I never saw a human being or anything made by him for his betterment. So I'm grateful to be part of this. I'm thankful to have been aware and fix for all these years and
Thank you, Rebecca. Thank you. And all kinds of our next reader, taught at Alexander for many years, and is the author of Light 11, who shaped Alexander's first century, a book I believe in which we had a poem here.
It's on one of his books.
On one of his professors. Oh, outstanding. So good. Perfect. Please welcome another one of my first teachers, Ann Bowden. Ann.
Thanks a lot, Rebecca, for totally wiping me out before I have to speak. Curiously enough, maybe not curiously, some of Rebecca's favorite poems were the ones some of my favorite poems too, and that I had hoped to read if they were available. And I'm going to succumb to the temptation of reading not one but two, and it won't last long, but I too admire it greatly. I'm going ultimately to read this winter writer for reasons that I'll talk about in a moment. Rebecca had mentioned one of my favorites, which is Cancer Clinic A, very early on, before some of the more painful aspects of their experience occurred. And I think it's beautiful too. So I would like to read Cancer Clinic. How beautiful and beautiful are the fish in the tank as they dart, zigzag, flash their lives away for us. I hope some of them are those adorable kissing fish, those orange, silver green smoochers, who can't stop kissing each other, both moving in the same direction while their lips are locked. I keep watching and waiting for a strong, sticky pucker, or a deep water kiss. Meantime, what a soothing, calming, healing quality pervades Clinic A. I think the imagery there is beautiful, soothing, and suggestive. Just close attention. Now I'd like to read the poem this winter writer, partly as a thank you to Dick Stahl. Whenever I presented the program at any writerly event, Dick would attend, listen assiduously, and then make a poem about it. And so my presentation was preserved, rescued from the mortality of the moment because of his words. Dick believed, as is abundantly evidenced in My Cancer Chronicle, that words could confer lasting life. That's what his poem, This Winter Writer, is about. Creatures human and inhuman who refuse to allow their mortality to erase all. And that is what this event today celebrates. This winter writer. This winter writer loves to watch the black squirrel zigzag our backyard near the single bold evergreen and beyond as September tightens its grip. They seem frantic as they scurry and quickly jump to notice the ground. I check the stubborn leaves too from behind the warmth of the sliding glass door in our tiny room. Because some just resist falling, being raped and bagged or picked up by hand. These leaves stick and stay almost the entire winter. Or maybe the last leaf on a neighbor's tree becomes a poem. Or maybe one black squirrel trails the snow encouraged me is its own way to immortality. I keep my ache awed out, like my soul, as the polar vortex hits us again, hunkering down and overdressing for our next trip to clinic. Happy birthday.
Thank you very much. Yeah, and I saw those, the problems about the poetry. That's a little. Let's go slow. I'm gonna read a poem and then I'll choose the next speaker. I'm gonna read one of my favorites from the book. And one that I think really represents sort of what I talked about the others. Like there's a lot of, if you're familiar with this work, like there's familiarity with it. You sort of imagine the leaps on like the way this play out on the page, the stanza breaks. I really feel like this is sort of like the best of what you've read from Dick previously, and the best of it's in this book. This is called Emerald Green. You can find it on page 14. Emerald Green symbolizes liver cancer, the fresh, strong, dynamic color that lives profusely like some lush green postcard from Ireland, like my Iowa master's thesis entitled The Symbolism of Order and Chaos in the Poetry of William Butler Yeats. He lived in his own square tower for a time. That's how I felt sometimes, climbing and paying the top to my own mental tower to look over at the emerald hills, living with what the Irish do so well in literature to celebrate their culture and country. With what the nurses do so well as they enter the room at the Holden Comprehensive Cancer Center to celebrate their work and their own lives live around Iowa's green pastures. Maybe someday I can walk the pond where Yeats did to share his poetic vision, one that has me sporting my own green ribbon. Our next speaker, reading a poem by request, another former poet laureate for Quad Cities. Please welcome Stahl.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Helen, for inviting me here. It is a great honor. And fellow members of the Stahl family, it's wonderful to see you here. Thank you, Ryan and Rebecca, for so much work on this project, and for loving Dick so much. Dr. Zachariah, thank you for coming. Fellow poets. I know that Dick always was very generous with me. When we met at Queen City Poets, he and I would be whispering, and every one of his suggestions was right on. When our son went away to college, he was worried. He was worried that he couldn't compete. He went to a very good school. And I wrote a poem for him called All of It. Dick and Helen came to, I think, Cool Beans, perhaps. And I showed it to Dick. And once again, 2 or 3 comments, they hit me. I improved the work. Dick had a wonderful tradition of writing poems for fellow poet laureates. And I don't know how he did it, but he, for example, wrote a poem for me where he wove together my occupation, and he somehow remembered numerous of the poems that I had read, speaking of powers of his observation, numerous poems that I had read probably one time that he had no copies. Queen City Poets, poetry readings, radio. I don't know how he did it. I don't know how he did it. And I looked at that poem today before I came here. It's in a prominent place in my office. And so when I was invited here, I probably did the same thing I do sometimes when other people write to me. I didn't read very carefully. Like my assistants say sometimes, would you reread these instructions, please? You didn't seem to get them all. Well, I don't think I got the message today properly, because when Paul Olson came and said, well, don't we have to know what other people are reading so we don't read duplicates? And that was the first time it ever struck me that we weren't supposed to read a poem about Dick, but by Dick. It's like, what are you thinking, Dale? Well, I understood that Helen wanted me to read a poem that I had written for Helen and Dick's 50th wedding anniversary. And so I had looked at that, read it a couple of times, so I didn't move on. And I can tell you it needs more Helen in this poem. But I tried to leave a little bit of not only Dick, but I had desperately tried to do even remotely what Dick had done for me in the poem that he had written for me. I tried to write it in his voice, and I tried to use the type of images that he would, and I tried to weave in a little bit of Dick's life in this poem. It's called Dick Stahl, Helen, and the Milky Way. This is a man of no love, unless, of course, he is standing on one. This is Colonel Davenport of the Quad Cities poets, the Antoine Leclerc of our poetic geography. From his pen flow floods of milk through Davenport's riverside streets, or blocks of ice with frozen fish forlornly looking out in suspended animation. Boilers about to explode at the family's dairy. Can you imagine it raining butter and cream? Truly a Milky Way, not way up there, but right here on the banks of our mighty river. His words sail rhythmically like gentle skiffs, with mirth and irony juxtaposed in harmony, so easily, so skillfully, these descriptive songs of melody. Waltzes of wildflowers echoing through our Iowa fields, polkas sprouting from his fertile imagination, a riot of colors and sounds rendered effortless. Streets with interconnected names. Who is responsible for this nod to lightheartedness? Wandering our region's margins, and always, his love for Helen, inspiring, shining, a bedrock of poetic sources, his love for her gentle soul, the face that watched 1,000 poems. Forgive me, I borrowed that last line from Dick himself. Thank you, Dick Stahl. Thank you, Helen Stahl, for being my poetic and personal.
Thank you. Our next speaker is a retired professor at Coach in Stahl. Paul.
This track coach went to Dick Stahl in 1987 and said, I got an idea about poetry. I think if we could present it, memorized, and call it a program of poets, it might work. And Dick Stahl said, come to my classroom and you have to do it. And he became my mentor, all the affirmation, and that program lasted for 15 years in high schools all over the country. That was what Dick Stahl meant to me. And there's a kind of, besides respect, a love that he demonstrated for the people he worked with. And that's how I picked this poem out of this book. I'm going to ask you to pay special attention to. Let love do its thing. The title is, I don't have, it's on page 38, is that the same thing in your book? If you want to follow. Nurse Susie tells my wife and me to kiss before nap. I'm not sure how kissing affects napping from my groin to my liver. Maybe there's some higher motion of the male system that works better if stimulated by a kiss. Maybe there's a strong correlation between a quick smack and better mapping outcomes for success later. After all, loves are relaxing. No cause to be tight now and all wrapped up with anxiety and foreboding. Let love do its thing, as offered like some trusty elixir that hits the spot at this special moment. Thank you.
Very much, Paul. It's my great pleasure to welcome Don. He's also the cover photographer of the book, which is very cool. We were so excited about that. We just wanted to special all of you to get it as well. So also it's like one of my favorite places in the world too. So like first please welcome Renee and her children, Ellington, Person, to read some of the function. Oh, everybody's coming up all at once. Okay, I didn't know all the niggas welcome to Stahl.
This poem is called No Back Almost At the A 7-year grandmother spends the night on right here with a second kid in the back of the house. He greets him at me, smiles, and says, Good grandpa, I need your beauty tip to smile back because you're a weakness. I turn away for a second and cheerfully with confidence, showing you a clean, smooth feelings. Faithful nod, an empty Viking tea bowl, so I thought, good girl, I exclaimed. You're all you know the real secret. My cancer medical Tuesday to be swallowed at dinner. So I did, taking whole gulps of water and down the hatchway up, almost as fast as us. But Ellington's way ahead of me, thank goodness. Watch together is this poem is called The Legend of Earth's Windows. With my wife's help, I take a wide array of 20 medicines the painters, the mud bears, the eye rots, the yellow ointments for my faded white cheek, toothpaste, the white bubble just Saturday walk. Eat healthy, exercise the best. My morning naps starts around 10 a.m. and lasts for 40 to 45 minutes. My wife wakes me up on time. A normal nap is a normal nap in the afternoon due to the day. Water, exercise, right. Composing comes for this book keeps me thinking, imagining, remembering, and revising. My mind takes a detailed view and inspired to think that new thoughts, new lines, new satisfaction. Water, exercise, hope. So I walk down the sidewalk up here, exercising, taking water, looking at my lilac, and peaceful just fun changes.
Hey, there's one thing I know about my grandparents that he loved coffee, nothing but soccer for drinking it. And he passed out when I was 1 pound. So this poem is for Dr. Fish, which is here, and it's called Coffee Carnival. One more question, Dr. Fish. What about drinking coffee? 1 or 2 sips isn't enough pleasure for me. I need more. I already confessed about my urinary tract infection using all the restrictions thereof. She paused. Medically speaking, I don't see why you can't have a cup of coffee now, explained Dr. Fisher. The doctor with a few minutes would discharge me from the University of Iowa Hospital. At the question, she warmed up like a freshly brewed cup with caramel drizzle, Nantucket, pumpkin spice dripping in one new Iowa hot. Her face smiled with like a sign of complaints. She couldn't resist the aroma of all the ones in it. Her speech became more animated, her face bright, like I had given her $1 million first prize. She went through her reasoning process and gave me shit before her final prognosis. Yes, you can drink coffee. Positively, yes. Let me sign those papers so you can get to the coffee carnival quicker. I can hardly contain my taste buds from change. Thank you.
My dad modeled how to love unconditionally and live life to the fullest. During his cancer treatments, he was very grateful for all of the love and support given to him. This poem is called Life, Loving, and Living. I'm glad I spent most of my time on this earth loving a beautiful woman who is now my wife, Helen, and her 3 children, Rita, Randy, and Renee, and her grandchildren. Loving is easy when you have support from family and friends and people in Cancer Clinic A who have our fondest admiration and keep my steady health in mind. I want the last words in this book to include what we all aspire to, a better life.
My father like son, we both like the eye. This poem is called Kelly's Choice. Treatment done September 5th, 2019. Kelly suggests Helen and I get at Stella's, a nearby restaurant with a rollicking atmosphere. The tenderloins were big, round, juicy, and sumptuous. The salad on the same plate was fit for a starving football player. The dessert was butterscotch bread braided with blueberries and strawberries on top like a quick PAT. No wonder Helen and I wanted to join the 11 Iowa Hawkeye football players huddled around the lawn table beside us to hear the kidding, laughing, joking, and maybe the quarterback calling our next play. At Cancer Clinic.
This poem is called The Doctor Keeps My Skin Supple at the Point, at the Spot. The doctor keeps my skin supple at the spot by playing Mozart's Camille Concerto No. 12. His fingers dancing across my midsection with such regularity and brilliance that I almost want to join his profound rendition. I'm sure it's an individual thing, but his soft fingertips know all the right notes to keep me at attention. I only hope the beats hear the same music and fall into the same place where he wants them, on the right side of my liver and on the right side of my passionate disposition. This is a very, very, very special room to me because in October of 1962, Dick was a commuter that
lived in Davenport and had to drive across the river to get to Augustana College. Well, I grew up in Illinois on a farm, so I lived on campus. However, one day out of all 4 years that I did not go to Western to eat lunch, I decided to come here. This was St. Clair Library. Well, little did I know that I sat down at a long table right up here. And this guy started coming over to me, started talking to me. I had no idea who this guy was or whatever. His first question was, "Are you an English major?" And I said, "No." However, I was an elementary education major, and so therefore I had lots of classes in Old Main, the one with Dome, and at that time there was East Hall, a house, and where some of the English classes were. So anyway, that was our first impression of this Stahl. And from there we had a coffee date at the Old Union. But our real successful date was to go to the Capitol Theater in Davenport and to see the movie To Kill a Mockingbird. And so that's kind of our favorite movie that we always think about. And from there, well, it's kind of history. We went to Iowa, where I was a master's degree in strategy in the Army. And I graduated from here at St. Charles, Illinois. Finally, in 1966, I met him at O'Hare Airport, and we came back and surprised his parents, but they surprised him with a Ford red Mustang. So, well, that's pretty special. Yeah, we were married in 1968, the rest is history. So, but I'm so grateful for all of you to be here today, and thankful to all of the doctors and nurses and all the staff at Iowa. We just felt like family there. And to go back to the fish, big sister also graduated from Montana and Iowa Medical School as a breast cancer surgeon in Cincinnati for many years and is retired now. But in her office, she always had fish. And the fish now are in her home. And she actually has some that are called kissing fish. So that's why he relates to the fish tank at Iowa and the cancer. But they're just so soothing, and I know that Dr. Donna's office sister would think the same thing. So that's another reason. But and also I want to mention that on the cover of the book, Dick was very interested in symbolism, not only numbers, but colors and anything that he could think of. And obviously, with cancer, you have a lot of belief, a lot of hope, and one of the symbolisms of hope is waterfall. So this waterfall, the picture is from Mid-Mama Falls in Minneapolis. And I will tell you that that water eventually gets down to the Mississippi River. And some of you know that we've spent all 40 of his books basically talking about the river. And with the Loving Book, we flying 33 bluffs and look down from the bluff and look down the river. So he spent lots of time down the river with his dad or by himself. When he went on milk route with his dad every Saturday and during the week in the summertime, his dad would deliver milk to businesses on 2nd Street in Davenport. He asked his dad if he could go down to the river. Mind you, he was 5 or 6 years old doing this. And he would go down to the river and watch and sometimes try to fish or whatever. So that's where his love of the river came from. And so I wanted to have water on the cover of the book to remind us of his significant interest in the river. And also the word Minnehaha means waterfall. I read a poem called Helen the Artist, and it's interesting that when he got the shots, he always had to have it in the exact same spot. So therefore, they had a purple passion pin that I could draw a circle about the size of a quarter, or maybe about the size of a quarter. So obviously, when you take showers, and some of that kind of washed off because it wasn't permanent completely. And so I had a special purple pen that Susan, always kind, anyway, Susan gave me. Butcher, yes, thank you, Dr. Secretary. Helen, the artist, made circles around me with her purple passion plumbing pen, ready to draw a bullseye freehand at just the right angles so my shots found their target. After a few shells, I watched the ring fade away, wash down the string like strands of exotic hair. But I needed Helen to keep it in clear sight with her free-feeling artistry, so the nurses on duty spotted her pleasure quickly, and the needle thread its medicine safely inside her heart. Thank you all for being here, and your love and friendship is helping us.
Beautiful reading of your being so generous. It's for this life. That concludes the reading portion of the program. There's a beautiful display with some of those broadsides that they wrote, all textbooks, obviously get copies of the book over there. So you have anything else at the time. Thank you all again for being here. Really, it's a lot, especially on your birthday. So, yeah, it would be in a special place. Thank you all so much again. Please give them a round of applause. Thank you so much. See you. Whatever. Yeah.